3, 2, 1, and 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis, reaching the crest of its historic achievements in space.
Good evening. This is the launch in May of the Space Shuttle Atlantis. Quite dramatic, I can assure you. See the orange external tank, the two slender white rockets, solid boosters, and of course the orbiter that takes the astronauts to their target, the space station, nearly 300 miles up. The astronauts were Commander Ken Ham and astronaut Piers Sellers. Now, before they went up, Chris Linton was in America and talked to the astronauts.
Like most of its recent voyages, the last flight of Atlantis took the shuttle back to the International Space Station. Construction began in 1998, and now, finally, the station is nearly complete. This mission is the culmination of months of training for the 6 crew members aboard Atlantis, most of which takes place here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. A few weeks before launch, I caught up with British-born astronaut Piers Sellers, whose interest in spaceflight goes all the way back to his childhood memories.
I was about 7 when I first heard of people flying in space. And I grew up with the whole space race business, in the 60s and the 70s. So I saw the whole thing. The whole,
Atlantic.
Yes. I saw Sir Patrick, or just Mr. Patrick more in those days, as he covered the lunar landings. And the whole thing was just galvanizing to me. It's a completely new thing for our generation, and I've loved just being a little part of it.
You're about to head back to the station. Tell us what it looks like, what modules are up there, and what's changed since you last visited.
Well, the good news is that just about everything that was intended to be put up on station is there. I'd say about 98%, which is a tremendous feat. And the last time I was there in 2006, we were less than halfway. Up to now, it's been pretty much full-on assembly, full-on operations and repair. And from now on in, for the next at least 10 years, we're hoping, we'll be seeing a lot of science and tech development.
What should we expect in the next decade?
Well, some of the things they've been doing involved materials science and combustion and things like that can only be done in space. Another thing they've found is that when you take bacteria, things like salmonella and MRSA, the strains become more virulent, more nasty.
Because of the radiation, presumably?
It's actually zero G, we think, actually drives the mutation rate, goes up a bit, and there's not much selection, more generations. So you get nastier bugs quicker, which actually is useful because you can make better vaccines.
It's hard to practice for the weightless environment of space while down here on Earth, but the solution lies in this large swimming pool.
This is the neutral buoyancy lab where we practice assembling the space station. Yep. The way we do it, we've got a full-size scale model space station, thrown it in the pool, and then we have old spacesuits or spacesuits that have been used for tests. We put our guys in there, and we pressurize the suit so it's just the right amount of pressure that you would feel in space when you put yourself in the water. The suit sort of stiffens up because of the air pressure inside the suit. And we weigh them out just perfect so they're just hovering in the water. And that's the closest we can get to a sensation of weightlessness and giving you all the problems and advantages of working in a weightless environment.
And what's your role today?
Today I'm going to be driving the big arm, so I'm the crane operator.
Suiting up for spacewalk training is fellow astronaut Garrett Reisman. Prior to Atlantis' flight, he'd already clocked up 7 hours' experience as a spacewalker.
One of the hardest things about doing a spacewalk is overcoming the suit. You don't really overcome the suit, you learn to work within its constraints. Because, we've kind of made the analogy a lot that it's kind of like trying to change the oil in your car while wearing a medieval suit of armor, because the way this thing really restricts your motions. So see, I can't raise my hands any higher than this. That's as high up, so I can't reach anything up by my head. And I got this range to work in right here, but I can't reach behind me very well. This is about all I got.
Preparations complete, the real work of the day can begin. The 7-hour session sees Garrett in the pool, with Piers coordinating the movements of the robotic arm from up in the control room.
This is a model of the arm. The real one's about 65 foot long, but this is my more portable version. And it shows you all the ways that you can rotate and move around. Each of these is a joint. It's quite complicated to do the moves. It doesn't always want to go where you want it to go.
The robotic arm is absolutely critical to the station's operation. Not only is it used to move pieces of the station around, but it provides a smooth ride for spacewalking astronauts.
Okay, please give me about, it'll be between 20 and 30 centimeters up.
Stop motion.
Now let me just have about 10 centimeters left.
10 centimeters left, that's towards you.
Correct.
Motion.
And stop motion.
Stop motion.
Yeah, it's got to
Okay, just say complete.
Brakes are on.
Errors made in the pool are embarrassing, but really no big deal. But the goal is to make sure that mistakes aren't made 300 miles above the surface of the Earth, where they may have more serious consequences.
We're like little hamsters going round and round until we get it right. The great disgrace is smacking the station with the arm or hitting it with an astronaut or something. Try and avoid that. High priority.
Just a few weeks after I met them, Piers joined his crewmates and their commander, Ken Ham, on what should be the final flight of Atlantis. They carried with them some of the final pieces of the International Space Station, the largest structure ever assembled in space.
And now we are deeply honoured to be joined by the two astronauts, Commander Ken Ham and astronaut Piers Sellers. Welcome to you both, and thank you so much for coming. It's fair to say, isn't it, that flight was a complete success. What exactly were you doing? Can I come first to you, please, Ken?
Sure, I can give you a quick synopsis, if you will, of the mission. It starts with the launch in Florida, where we're all sitting at the speed we're going right now, which happens to be 1,000 miles an hour, with respect to the center of the Earth, of course. And then 8.5 minutes later, after liftoff, we're going 17,500 miles an hour. That's a ridiculous acceleration rate. It's kind of interesting that your brain can actually integrate. It senses that acceleration over time. It's so fast that you can't really describe it adequately. And the experience of launch, the vibration, the feeling of power, the looking out the window as the sky goes from blue to black, is absolutely incredible. And then once we're on orbit, we have to turn this rocket ship into a spaceship, which is a different kind of a beast. And it takes a good day to turn the rocket ship into a spaceship. So now it's our habitable floating volume that we guide through space. And then we begin the process of rendezvousing with the space station, which is a remarkable feat in and of itself. We use star trackers for navigation. We use an onboard radar to lock on to the space station, and some of that pointing information goes into the guidance computers on board the space shuttle to help us target multiple burns to adequately adjust our trajectory to come up to about 2,000 feet away from space station, where we take over manually and actually fly the space shuttle up to the space station. The final docking, the tolerances for a successful docking, plus or minus 3 inches. So when you think about where you came from, down on the planet, and how fast you're going, to pull all that together and make this rendezvous happen is really an incredible feat.
What exactly will be your main role?
After we'd arrived and rendezvoused the space station, we all piled in there and almost immediately got to work with the station crew. There were 6 people already on board when we got there. We had 3 spacewalks to do and a whole lot of robotic operations. Now with the spacewalks, we had the 3 guys go out in teams of 2, 3 times, and they went out to install a big new antenna, to change out some batteries for the solar arrays. So I think every day we were busy for about 6-7 days. We were working flat out every day.
How near completion is the station now?
And we're about done. I think the Russians are going to send up a big laboratory in 2012, and I think one of the last big things that we're going to send up is a hardened cargo container that we're going to put on as like a storage closet. But really, the space station as you see it now is about 95% complete, I think. And it's an incredible feat when you think about it. I went up there 4 years ago, and it was less than half the size. And now there it is. I mean, it's immense. It's 500 tons, all the solar arrays, huge sets of solar arrays all over it. And you can see this thing from miles away when you're approaching it. It is really quite the business.
And now what about the return, the entry, when you turn back into a glider?
Yes. This particular entry was visually amazing. On my last mission, coming home was in daylight, just the way the orbit lined it up. And in the high Mach numbers, the atmosphere basically becomes plasma from the friction. And during the day, you can't really see the colors. So looking out the windows was looking out the inside of a fireball. It was brilliant orange and pink. The sensation of speed when you're on orbit up there close to 300 miles or so, where you're going very fast, you don't really get the sensation of speed very much. You're looking down at the Earth just slowly gliding by. But once you do the deorbit burn, you begin to fall towards the Earth. You actually speed up. And by the time the orbiter is now a glider, an airplane again, and starts to aero capture, you're down to approximately 40 miles. So you go from 300 to 40 miles, much, much closer to the Earth, and you're going faster.
Space Shuttle Atlantis now comes home to the Kennedy Space Center for the final time. 25 years.
What are your main memories of the shuttle on the space station?
My favorite, by far, is looking out of this room, if you will, that we call the cupola. It is a 7-windowed observation deck that hangs on the bottom of space station. And you can fit 2 or 3 people in it comfortably. And the bottom window looks straight down at Earth. And in the past, we didn't have a cupola. All we had was windows. Some of them were quite nice.
They're like portholes, though.
Like portholes.
Yeah.
But you could only see a small arc of the edge of the Earth. Spectacular views. But now you can look down, or you can stick your head down inside this cupola. And when you look around in all directions, you can see the horizon of Earth. And you get this distinct feeling of Earth being a ball, floating in blackness.
Yes.
It is, it's physical, tangible, and it's right there, the whole thing.
What was your favourite moment in space?
Well, the favourite thing I like to do in space is spacewalk. And, I did those on my previous missions and didn't get to do it this time. But that's a lot of fun. For anybody who gets the opportunity, there's a thing to look forward to is to climb around on the outside of a spaceship with tremendous scenery, see the whole world floating by you, and just to be able to move around outside this big structure using your fingertips. That's good.
Something that we have not mentioned yet is just simply living in zero gravity. There are many aspects of daily life that you would be surprised at. Obviously, fluid doesn't stay in a cup, so everything you drink comes out of a bag with a straw. But simply moving something. If you were to say, "Can I see your watch?" I could just hold it and just push it towards you. And it would go in a very straight line, and you could just grab it out of the air. And I think that little elegant beauty of that situation never gets old.
And you get good at it after a while. That, if you're working on something, you can put a tool there, and as long as you keep it in the corner of your eye, it'll just stay there while you're working on something, and then grab it and use it again. It can be a lot of fun, very satisfying. You see some really extraordinary things from the vantage point of the space station or the shuttle. One thing I remember seeing is moonrise and moonset from the Earth. It's incredible to see the moon just lift up quite quickly through the atmosphere above the Earth's limb and then move up through the sky. It's going fast enough, we're going fast enough, so you can actually see the moon moving. Same with sunrises. You can see as the sun comes bursting up really above the Earth's limb, and you can track it across the sky, and all the shadows on space station move. You can watch them move. So you really get a sensation of that you are in the solar system. There's the Earth going around the sun, and you're going around the planet, and it all kind of makes sense.
When you first go up there, you look down at the planet, and you don't know what you're looking at. It's hard to say. You have to go find a computer to tell you where you are over the Earth. However, through repetition, you learn that that green aurora over there always happens near the South Pole in this month. And when the ground looks sandy, you're over Africa. When you can see nothing but water, you're probably over the Pacific Ocean. When you look down and you see a lot of grass, brown grass in particular, you're over Canada or North America. When you see beautiful mountains, it's either the Himalayas or the Andes. And you kind of get that sensation that the whole Earth is your neighborhood.
And it's smaller than you think.
It is.
The Earth is smaller than you think. You can, from up there, you can see individual fields, towns easily. The towns are quite big and visible, and bridges and structures like that. But at the same time, you're going around the whole world in 100 minutes. So it's not a very big planet.
No,
it really isn't.
What about the shuttle in general?
The space shuttle is an elegant, beautiful machine. One of the most striking visual thoughts I have when I think of space shuttle is what it is like when it's up in space on space station. Space station is enormous, but it's a very angular, machine-looking beast from the outside. But then when you're in the cupola, for example, looking back at Atlantis or any one of the space shuttles, you see this beautiful curved airplane. And it's an airplane that is up there in space attached to the space station. And I'm not sure we're ever going to see that again. So we were fortunate enough to fly Atlantis home on this flight, which we call the first last flight of Atlantis because we're not sure if she'll fly again. But when you think about what Atlantis has done in her career,
Oh, yes.
32 flights into space, so almost 200 million miles.
240, was that right?
Something I can't remember, but a ridiculous amount of miles flown.
Yeah.
It went to the Mir space station 7 times, I believe. It launched Galileo,
Serviced
Magellan,
Hubble.
serviced Hubble. The list goes on of the feats that this machine has done. It's remarkable.
What about this change of plans that Mr. Obama has organised?
The shuttle program will be finishing for good. There'll be a gap before we have any manned spacecraft online in the
Yes.
US. It's not clear right now how that's going to work out, but I would imagine in the next 2 years or so, it'll become clear.
No shuttles. What happens then? Do we depend entirely upon the Russians?
For transportation of astronauts, it will be dependent on the Russians for the foreseeable future. Hopefully, we'll get a commercial sector, if you will, in the United States that will be able to bring astronauts up to the space station for us. However, for supplies, we use the HTV and the ATV. These are acronyms that don't really matter much, but they're supply ships that get launched from various countries around the world to resupply space station.
Do you expect to see men on Mars in your lifetime?
That's a great question. In fact, some of us were just kicking this exact question around yesterday. You can now talk to someone that's 28 years old and realize, or have them realize, that in their lifetime, no one has walked on the moon. Until we get some clear direction and some real goals as a nation or as a planet, humanity, to go in that direction, I'm not sure it's going to happen.
I'm a little more optimistic. I think we're probably one of the flattest spots in space exploration that we've been for a long time, because shuttle programs coming to an end, and we've had this very versatile instrument. But one of the legacies of the whole space station project was a very good international consortium.
Yes.
A partnership that came out of this. And I'm hoping that we can build on some of the strengths of the partnership, because I think the resources required to explore Mars will be more than just any one country. So I'm hoping, that if I continue to live healthy, don't smoke, don't drink too much, that I will see somebody land on Mars. I hope that you see somebody land on Mars. I think it'd be tremendously exciting
Well, I don't think I will.
to see.
After all, don't forget, I must be one of the very few people who know or knew the first man on the moon, the first man in space, and the first airman, Orville Wright.
Really?
I wonder what will happen next. Anyway, both you two are certainly left your mark in history.
I've been to space 3 times, and the lasting impression you have is that I wish I could take everyone else I know with me.
If I wasn't in my 88th year, I'd want to join you.
Never too late, man. Sign up now.
Possibly. Congratulations to you both, and thank you indeed for coming here. It's been a great honour.
I think the honour is all ours.
It is. Thank you, Sir Patrick.
Piers, Ken, thank you very much. Don't forget, it's newsletter time. If you like your newsletter, you can request it using the address on the screen now, and you'll receive it by return. But of course, you can always have it as usual by post. Send your stamped addressed envelope to Newsletter 118, The Sky at Night, BBC Birmingham, the mailbox, Birmingham, B1 1AY. And so, until next month, good night.